but maybe there's a need to have a second round of comments for those members who want to. Or we can pass on to the decision maybe. Can we have it on the screen? The decision concerning the roadmap. Yeah. But maybe because the roadmap, of course, is basically a summary of the 8 recommendations, where it's indicated who should do something, and the time given between now and the council should be used by the Secretariat to elaborate further on actions that have to be taken, so in order to prepare the council to take a meaningful decision on it. But maybe, Guy, you can tell a little more about the structure of your roadmap.
Thank you very much, Chair. As you say, this is the roadmap is the process by which the Secretariat can advance issues so that by the time we come to the Council, there are some draft documents for consideration there. These documents would be, for example, Recommendation 1, there should be a draft of a strategic framework that the Council can start discussing. I expect the Council will accept the recommendation there should be a strategic framework, but it should not wait for 2 years to have such a strategic framework, so we should have a draft document as well. Then for recommendation number 2, there should be a draft plan. Recommendation number 3, this is for the Secretariat affairs. It's not. This is not for the governing bodies. This is internal structuring. So there's no need there. As regards recommendation 4, this is the question that by the time we come to council, we should have a platform. I'm sure the council will agree that there should be a platform. If they say no, well, we have a platform, but of course, I'm sure it makes sense. And then number 5, we don't anticipate a document at this stage. Maybe we need a document to present to the council as well. Number 6, on gender transformation, there should be a draft plan. On number 7, there should be some draft guidelines. And number 8, there should be a monitoring and evaluation framework. So there could be at least 5 documents that should be tabled at the council to advance the work of the recommendations. With this roadmap, it's a mandate to the Secretary to make some work on this and to get the views of the Bureau. So it will be a lot of work between now and because the documents for the Council should be completed probably by September, end of September, because the meeting is already going to be in November. So between now and September, the Secretary must work hard, must consult with yourselves, and improve the documents that can go to the Council. That is the point of the roadmap.
Yes, Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for giving the floor, and thank you to Guy for giving this provided this issue. I also agree with you, Mr. President, that maybe we could pass to the draft decision because as Guy has confirmed, the roadmap should be also taken into account by the Council and the Secretariat to advance in some processes, particularly the draft of the documents. So I have some amendments to the draft decision. You allow me when you are ready. I don't know now or after.
Because I saw Morgan wanted to say something about the roadmap. Or
yes, it was more about the first point. To formulate the draft strategic framework in collaboration with the chair and external evaluator. I think this is the place where you should include the stakeholders, the bureau members, and the council. How do you want to do this here? Will there be a working group, or Will there be some online consultations, or how would you manage that? Because I think that's quite important.
Originally, we were hoping that if we had time here, we could get some short brainstorming just to give us guidance for version 0. If there's no time, we can do version 0 and circulate it to. But of course, we'll go through some versions through online because we will not have a special meeting of the Bureau.
But I have the feeling that this morning already, many remarks have been made which reflect on it. Unless, of course, there are some other ideas that have not been put forward yet, but I wanted to repeat, not to avoid repeating the general remarks. And so I would suggest that maybe the Secretariat can work on a first draft, then send it around. And if there's a need for a more elaborate debate, I think we can foresee some sort of information meeting or wider gathering before it's finalized. But I think it's of course, unless somebody now in the Bureau has a specific point that has not been raised yet that they want to bring to the attention of the Bureau, please.
Chair, if my memory serves me well, I think I remember when we had our information meeting, was it in September? Yeah, we agreed that the Secretariat will come up with a draft, then circulate it among the Bureau members and see what input they can come in terms of creating that draft. I think that's what we agreed.
I didn't understand what
you said. I'll say we agreed during our meeting, information meeting, that maybe this IPDC Secretariat can come up with a draft.
Yes.
Then circulate it among Bureau members. Yep. So that by the time we find to take to the Council, at least we have had received inputs from all Bureau members.
No, indeed. But I mean, if this morning already many Bureau members spoke out the general ideas about the recommendations and the evaluation, so I think the Secretariat took that all on board, and now they have to prepare this the strategic plan.
It works well if we have, like my colleague, the other vice president, if he has ideas, she can throw those ideas to the Secretariat so that they include in the draft to whatever thing.
But are there any other ideas? Because that's what I'm asking. If the Bureau members they've already spoken on it, so many elements have already been put forward. But of course, if in the framework of the brainstorm, people that now have already ideas they want to put to the table, they can do it.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, for taking. No, maybe we can cover the concern from Denmark and Zambia in the draft decision. Maybe we could include, for example, in the second paragraph, to request the Secretariat to follow up the roadmap, or maybe to prepare the documents for the documents for the consideration. First of all, making consultations with the Bureau members, because I think I also agree with Denmark and Zambia that it's important that the Bureau members could have the first draft, and then before the consideration of the Council, so we can facilitate the work for the Council with our regional groups, and for example, to do informal meetings with the regional groups before the Council, and then the Council doesn't have to discuss very much, and the document will be ready for being adopted. Maybe that could be a solution.
Okay. I think that's how I understood also that Guy was planning to do it. So can we have the draft decision then on the screen, Oman?
I would just like to request if this to be done in advanced time, so we can communicate and coordinate with each. Yeah. So it will not be in a short time, and it will be difficult to communicate. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm sorry, I need to say that there has been, as some of you know, there has been a concern from a lot of member states in Paris that this bureau meeting has been is taking place in Accra, and that was because of the evaluation. That was the first time where member states, also observers, could come with some inputs for the strategic framework. So I would suggest, as Mons also suggested, actually, that we need some more member states involvement. That means that we need some more council members involvement. We are talking a lot about communication between the Bureau and the Council, and now we are actually doing the opposite. So I think we need to involve, it is not that they need to sit around the table.
I don't think that we differ on that.
But we could have an informal, we could have an online consultation process. So if
I think the only thing that we need to do today is to now the evaluation has been presented. The evaluation now needs somehow to be passed on to the Council with a recommendation from the Bureau, and in between the strategic framework has to be worked on.
Yes.
So the Secretariat should start working as soon as possible on this, and the first step that they could take is to send around a questionnaire or some elements to the members of the Council and ask for input. And
Very
then
good.
we start working. But I would avoid, because we've been discussing the problematic issues over and over again, so you can of course repeat that, but that doesn't help. So I think
we totally agree.
Yeah.
It is just to make sure that this involvement of the Council will be there.
maybe we could try to reflect that in the Bureau decision. But for that, I would like to see the Bureau decision on the screen. Is it possible? Or maybe you all have it in the documents, but it's easier when it's on the screen. But okay, well, it's not a very long text, so we could try it in the old-fashioned way with prints. You want to start? Yeah.
Chair. So, Mr. Chair, taking into account the concerns that have been expressed today, we consider that, first of all, the first paragraph, we cannot endorse the recommendations because, as said my colleague from Denmark, with the Bureau cannot decide this issue at this stage. It's the Council who has to decide. So maybe the first paragraph should say, take note with appreciation. Takes note with appreciation the recommendations of the evaluation of IPDC and to submit and decides to submit them is the Bureau who decides, no? And decides to submit them for consideration of the Council, of the 31st session of the Council. First, decides, is the Bureau who decides to submit, take note with appreciation the recommendations and decides to submit them.
Yes.
To submit
I think
them
that's.
This is the first. So I don't know if someone.
I would like to add.
Reactions?
Maybe I would like to start first with, like I said at the beginning, not start immediately with the recommendation, but first say, if we say, take note with the appreciation of
yes.
the evaluation.
Yes,
and then,
better. Yes.
because I would like to express some positive appreciation
Positive,
for
yes.
the evaluation itself.
For the evaluation
And
and decides to submit the recommendations, yes. And decides to submit the recommendations or its recommendations for consideration of the 31st Council for a final decision or just like that. I don't know.
yes, Sonia?
Yes, I would just like to bring to the attention of the Bureau members the first sentence, which explains why we had the endorse where we had it. The first sentence reads, the Bureau takes note of the full report of the evaluation of IPDC and the roadmap for the implementation of recommendations and considers recommending to the IPDC Council, Colin, to endorse. That's why we had the endorse there, because it's not actually the Bureau who was endorsing. The Bureau is taking note and recommending to the Council to endorse. Anyway, just to make sure that we take into account the first sentence.
Okay, you're right. So if we make it, we start again, the Bureau takes note with appreciation of the full report and the roadmap, and then recommends.
Why to consider it, Mr. Chair? Because we don't know what is going to happen in the Council. Maybe the Council could say that only 2 or 3 recommendations will be endorsed.
Okay,
so we cannot put to endorse. We can to consider the recommendations at its 31st session.
So the Bureau takes note with positive
and
appreciation and then recommends to the Council.
Yes. And then recommends to the IPD Council to consider the recommendations at its 31st session.
But the first sentence, which is now on screen,
maybe we can put as valid, because otherwise we could have a confusion, as I have, no? Maybe put a valid in the first one, that is the Bureau, put a valid because it's part of the decision. Que le pongas un primer número valid. Cuando comenzamos con the Bureau.
So make it not as an introductory sentence, as part of the decision.
Yes.
Put a bullet.
Valid, yes.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Okay. The Bureau takes note with appreciation of the full report of the evaluation of IPDC and the roadmap for implementation.
And
recommends to the Council.
To consider their recommendations.
Then come after the second bullet, it's not takes note, but considers.
To consider the recommendations at this 31st session.
So you don't need to put to the Council at the end.
Yeah, no. At its 31st session for its final decision, maybe. It is better.
No, there's two times.
No, it's not necessary. No, it's only of the evaluation at its to consider the recommendations. Es para que examine en su sesión at its 31st session.
No.
I have to delete all that.
It can be shorter. So to consider the recommendations at its
31st session.
And then the middle part and decides to submit.
No, that's just have to delete that.
Delete that. You delete and decide.
Because it's the Council. It's the Council who has to do it. Yeah.
submit.
Add this to the first session and then delete of the council at its
end phonograph.
At its 30, yes, at its 30 session, and then delete of the council because we know that it's the council.
No.
At its
31st session.
For its final decision. For a final decision.
Yes? Can we all agree with that? Then the second, you should not number it here. It's replace the one with a bullet.
Yeah.
Make just bullets. So then the third bullet is to request the Secretariat to follow the report to the Council. You want to change that too?
Yes. For covering, Mr. President, all the concerns that have been expressed by Zambia and Denmark, maybe it will be useful to request the Secretariat to make consultations, to make previous consultations, or first of all to prepare the documents. Request the Secretariat to prepare the pertinent documents. So the Secretariat can prepare. The Secretariat to prepare the pertinent documents on this item, all the documents, because it's the strategy framework, the roadmap, everything, no? To prepare the pertinent documents on this item.
In consultation?
And for the consultations, I don't know, informal or for previous consultations between the members of the council, because that's what Denmark has mentioned. It's important that all the members of the council could be involved. I am totally agree with that. Previously, okay.
Council members.
To request the Secretariat to prepare the pertinent documents on this item, and to make consultations with council members, yes.
To consult.
And to consult with council members, comma, previously to the consideration of the council, or previously to its consideration. So before the consideration of the council, yes. And we did follow the roadmap and just like that, because we have put the pertinent documents, all the documents in this item, and we can include all the documents.
Is pertinent a good word?
I'm sorry that the English is not my mother language. Maybe you can help us.
Anglophone. Sean, is pertinent a good word for this? Relevant document. Maybe the word with can also go to consult council members. By the council.
Is it okay?
Can we all live with that? Rosa, sorry.
My comment is about the first and second bullet points, because the first is an introduction. So it says the Bureau takes note with appreciation of the full report of the evaluation of IPDC and the roadmap for the implementation of recommendations, and recommends to the Council, Colin, to consider the recommendations of the evaluation of the IPDC at its 31st session for the final decision, to request the Secretariat. So who requests the Secretariat? You're recommending the council to request the secretariat, or you're requesting already the secretariat? I think it's the second. Then this doesn't work because it's under the previous one saying that you're recommending to the council. So maybe we should say, the first one should say, the Bureau takes note with appreciation of the full report and the roadmap, calling, the roadmap for the implementation of recommendations, calling, or comma, and then recommends to the council to consider the recommendations, request the secretariat to prepare the relevant documents.
Also you take away 2 requests, you make it request on the 3rd bullet. No. Like the other one, you take 2 at the beginning of two requests you take. Het eerste woordje too high, nee, hoofdletter. We request the Secretariat to report. To report. No. So it's no. Yes? Are the other bureau members fine with this?
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. Enfin, je suppose que pour la partie anglaise qui a été reformulée, les mêmes reformulations de fond seront faites pour la partie française. Mais pour la partie française, justement, je trouve qu'il y a des trucs de forme, des observations de forme.
Je m'excuse, on doit encore reformuler le français parce que le français...
C'est juste vraiment des petits trucs. On ne change rien dans le fond. Dans le fond, le bureau prend note du rapport complet de l'évaluation du PIDC ainsi que de la feuille de route et envisage de recommander au Conseil. Je pense qu'on peut biffer pour la mise en œuvre des recommandations. La feuille de route et envisage de recommander au Conseil du PIDC de faire sienne les recommandations issues de ça, c'est bon. De prier, de demander, pas A, recommande 2 au lieu de A. le deuxième point. Non, on l'a biffé déjà. Pour la mise en œuvre, ce n'est pas nécessaire. La feuille de route, donc,
peut-être parce que
recommande au Conseil du PIDC.
Je crains qu'on est en train maintenant de taper quelqu'un qui ne maîtrise pas forcément le français. Bon. Je propose qu'on va faire une traduction.
On fait d'abord la traduction.
On fait en anglais et on assure que la traduction en français sera. Et si vous avez des questions, si vous avez...
oui, en espérant que, je vais dire, des mots comme A ne vont pas revenir. Le deuxième point, c'est 2 au lieu de A. Donc, même si on fait la traduction, A peut revenir. Puisque c'était déjà là. Le troisième point aussi, c'est au lieu de prier, de demander au secrétariat un suivi de la feuille de route. De demander au secrétariat un suivi de la feuille de route et de rendre compte au Conseil. De demander au secrétariat, dernier point, de demander au secrétariat de faire rapport au bureau du PIDC. Oui, là c'est bon. De demander, voilà, au lieu de prier, demander au
en tout cas, vous êtes le rapporteur, on ne peut pas passer...
Voilà. Ok, ça marche. Merci
beaucoup. Okay. Any further comments on this decision? So I think it's important that we added, say more clearly that the Secretariat is now not only starting to write the strategic plan, but starts consulting with members of the Council, and then there will be more, say, intense contact with Council members. I think that's the most important change. Is that acceptable to the Secretariat? Yeah. Okay, then we decide on this and thank the evaluator for his work and hope to see you back in the November Council. Okay, thank you very much. Then we can move on to the next item. As you all know, the General Conference took a decision on governance. And like Maria already said, there were many recommendations accepted. And also a number of them, of course, are dealing with the touching upon rather on what IPDC does. And there's a whole list of recommendations which you'll find annexed to the document that is before you. Maybe I can ask Rosa to introduce this, but I would like to suggest that we try to approach this in an efficient manner, because there are many recommendations, and I'm sure we do not have comments on all of them, but maybe we can, with the text in hand, can first collect those recommendations where members of the Bureau would like to make comments, go through the whole list, and then take those which need further discussions, but not invite discussions on all recommendations. Yes, Rosa.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So you have 3 documents in front of you for this agenda item. The main document describes the procedure, the process that led us to where we are now. So I don't think that it's necessary to repeat what has been done so far. You have it in the text and how we have been contributing already this past few years with different consultations and questionnaires. So I will not go into these details. I will then follow the methodology proposed by the chair. So we will focus on the table, knowing that the table has an annex that at some point will be mentioned. So the recommendations are grouped into two blocks. The first block is the general recommendations, and the second block is the specific recommendations to IPDC. So I will start with the general recommendations, which are also under different categories. So it starts with those referring to the efficiency, mandate, composition, structure, rules of procedure, and methods of work. So the first recommendation under this heading is number 56, where it says that international bureaus are invited to bodies, are invited to update their mandates as appropriate, including their objectives and programs to be more coherent with approved C5 priorities and responsive to current global developments, such as the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change. So here you have, do you want me to read the Secretariat comments and the proposed recommendation? No?
I would just like to invite Bureau members now, if this first recommendation, 56, if they want to discuss it or have comments on it, just yes or no, and then we can move on to the next one, and at the end we can come back on those recommendations that need discussion. So if nobody has any problem with this recommendation, we can move on to the next one.
Number 57, to promote diversity and inclusivity, voluntary term limits of 2 consecutive mandates are recommended for IIBs which currently do not have term limitations for membership.
Here the same question. Mr. Bureau wants to discuss this.
Thank you, President. This only for underline that this is a very important recommendation, that is not only for the IPDC, it's for all the programs, that is very important to have the voluntary term limits in all the bureaus. So we support very much, and we think that this recommendation has adopted by the General Conference. Its implementation is binding.
Yes.
So we consider that the Secretariat could include in when take the actions to prepare maybe for the next council the amendments from the rules of procedure, so that the next council could adopt this amendment. Thank you.
I think you're right. It's important to understand that these recommendations have been the result of a decision by the General Conference. So we cannot change it. We only need to reflect on it, and of course, if we have comments, we can make it. But indeed, Maria is right. This recommendation requires an action, and that's exactly what the Secretariat is going to do. Yes? 58?
Recommendation 58, as a general rule, term limits of 2 consecutive mandates for membership in all bureaus are recommended.
So 59?
59, for cost saving, coherence, and harmonization, it is recommended that IIBs and the General Conference consider right-sizing the composition of the IIBs.
This is also something that needs follow-up in the preparation of the next council.
There is a need to reduce and manage politicization of nominations and decisions. And here in your document there is a mistake in the proposed draft Bureau recommendation to the Council. It should actually read, the Bureau agrees that current practices are satisfactory. Should
Okay,
I
we're all satisfied?
Okay, should I continue? 61, to enhance visibility and the effectiveness of the work of the IIBs. More effective information dissemination is recommended through updating and enhancement of websites and outreach to all involved actors, including member states and international commissions.
Yes,
62, earlier preparation and dissemination of draft agendas and preliminary timetables, mainly by using the same template containing hyperlinks to documents to be adopted, discussed in sessions. 63, the Secretariat is invited to promote a harmonized virtual working environment for all IIBs and to revisit UNESCO's strategy on knowledge management and information and communication technology. Simple, more user-friendly documentation, i.e. less fragmented reporting and easier document tracking, annotated agenda with hyperlinks to reports and draft decisions.
I think we can all agree with that. And also this morning we said it was good that documents were more in time. Denmark?
Just a little administrative thing here. To make it more clear, the documents with the number of documents, and it's 62. You're running fast now. I think it was on number 62. There's something. Sometimes it's unclear with the way you are you're numbering the documents. So just to be more clear on that and making it harmonize all documents, that would be easier for the bureau members. Yeah.
The Secretariat took note of that?
Yes. Okay, number 64, open-ended informal consultations on draft decisions to promote inclusive and effective decision-making.
Good.
And here again, there's a mistake. The sentence for the Bureau should read, the Bureau agrees the current practices are satisfactory. Number 65, it is recommended that the rules of procedure of the IIBs be amended, when relevant, to advance the deadline for submission of candidatures to the subsidiary bodies from 48 hours to 7 days before elections.
Yes, I think here too the Secretariat has to do some work in preparation for the next council. Yes. That's all acceptable. 66.
So under the heading of harmonization, role of bureaus and transparency, recommendation 66, the role, composition and procedures of bureaus and their members should be clarified and harmonized through codification in rules of procedure, statutes, or development of general guidelines for all IIBs in close cooperation with the Secretariat.
Maybe this one is very close, linked to 67.
Okay, 67, it is suggested that Bureau's composition be set as much as compatible with individual IIB's mandates at a maximum of 6 members, chair, rapporteur, and 4 vice presidents from the 6 electoral groups. And here you will notice that there's no recommendation, there's no draft recommendation for the Bureau because the Secretariat left it open for the Bureau to decide if the current number of Bureau members is appropriate for the needs or if this recommendation to reduce should be followed. Taking into account that we have now 2 Bureau members from Africa, representing French-speaking African countries and English-speaking African countries, which would be reduced then to just 1.
Maybe I think there's one, if we accept the rule that the General Conference decided upon this, we have no choice but to make a change. Because otherwise IPDC would be the exception to the rule. But maybe we can come back to this at the end, because this is something that we may need more than a few minutes to talk about.
Number 68, the intergovernmental nature of bureaus should be reaffirmed while maintaining expert engagement. In this regard, the attached guidelines on responsibilities of Bureau members are recommended for dissemination to all governing bodies and IIBs. And here you can see the annex to the table that I referred to before. 69. Documents related to Bureau meetings should appear online before meetings take place. Outcomes, including reports of Bureau meetings, should be communicated to all members and, as appropriate, all permanent delegations in a timely manner. Number 70, elections of bureaus should be held as much as possible soon after elections for seats on the IIBs conducted at the General Conference, to avoid having bureau members from member states which are no longer members of the IIBs concerned.
I think that's a logical thing to do, and which we are already facing now. So.
Number 71, as much as feasible, bureau meetings should be open to observers and working methods made more transparent. 72, strengthen information sharing, communication and collaboration between bureaus, intergovernmental councils and committees and member states. 73, gender-neutral language be adopted throughout all UNESCO documents. Now under the heading of alignment with overarching priorities of UNESCO. 74, all IIBs should have the opportunity to submit formal inputs to the midterm strategy C4 and the draft program and budget C5 document of UNESCO. 75, a feedback mechanism can be envisaged for substantive dialogue between member states and IIBs beyond the limited reporting to the General Conference. This could be through information meetings or briefings. Reporting to the General Conference should be enhanced through a new, more strategic and results-oriented reporting format to be followed by debate and General Conference resolutions to provide feedback to IIBs. Continue. 76, orientation sessions for new members of all IIBs, especially for chairpersons and bureau members, should be institutionalized and include introduction to the C4 and C5 frameworks. To that end, a short user-friendly guidebook, including good practices and acronyms, could be produced to familiarize members with working methods and C4 and C5 mechanisms. Under the heading of coherence, coordination, and synergies, Recommendation 77 reads, balanced resource allocation is necessary to ensure the effectiveness of all IIBs. Number 78, use of languages for inclusivity and effectiveness remains an important objective. 79, IIBs and their secretariats are requested to enhance coordination in scheduling of meetings to avoid overlap. Under the heading of best practices, number 80, best practices should be shared and replicated or, if necessary, adjusted to reflect the specificities with the aim to promote governance mechanisms that facilitate strategies and action plans anchored on the C4 and C5. Attached in this regard is a non-exhaustive list of best practices identified by the working group. See Annex to table. And here, the text that we have under Secretariat comments actually should have been placed under the draft Bureau recommendation to the Council. So the Bureau agrees to recommend to the Council. So now we turn to the specific recommendations for the to the IPDC. So there are 4. The first one is reaffirm the intergovernmental nature, especially of the Bureau, while retaining expert engagement. Develop clear objective criteria for approval of projects. Examine roles of Bureau and Council in selection of projects. More balanced consideration of 6 priorities, including capacity building. And again, you have the Secretariat comments and the draft Bureau recommendation to the Council next to it.
I think if you look at the last 4, you can see that what we just discussed with the evaluation, these 4 are more or less included. So they should be part of the strategic framework that you'll be working on. So I think the only thing that we need to reflect on a little more maybe is the one where we are asked, or we are told, to reduce the number of Bureau members from 8 to 6, which would mean that the chair and the rapporteur would then be, say, one of the 6 and not say on top of the 6, if I may put it like that. Of course, we can, as IPDC, we can say we have a special status. We don't want to live up on this. Not the Bureau to decide, but I think the Council should do that. So for the Bureau now, it is, I think, more or less a decision. Do we want to suggest to the Council that the Council looks into this, and that it's up to the Council whether or not they want to ask for an exception? Or do we recommend the Council to follow the recommendation which was made by the General Conference? I think that those are the two options. Yeah?
Mr. Chair, thank you so much. We consider, Mr. Chair, that taking into account the recommendations of the General Conference, I think that any body in UNESCO can be an exception, because otherwise, if we make exceptions, the rest of the committees could say why the IPDC program is the unique program that has not implemented this recommendation. I was telling to the Secretary that, for example, Ecuador also is member of the MOST program, and the MOST program, even before that the General Conference takes this decision, this recommendation, the Bureau and the Council decided to reduce from 8 to 6. And let me tell you that there is not problematic, because as all the vice presidents of each electoral group has many important duties and responsibilities. If you look to the annex to the table that is here, the representation is not from a country, it's a regional representation, and this is develop all the duties that the vice chair has to do, is to make coordination with all the regional groups and to update from the decisions that the Bureau and it takes to consider by the process. So we don't see any problematic issue with the applied gas, because otherwise all the bodies could say, why is the unique? You are not unique.
I think you make your point. But you also have to consider, like you said before, the Bureau is there to prepare the Council. The Council should decide on it. So I would just like to. So you're clearly saying, I want to follow the decision taken by the General Conference. And I see Morgan raise his hand.
If it's the case that we have to reduce, of course. But I just want to raise a concern that we are. It increases the responsibility for 6. If there are 6 taking the decision, making the decision on the project, it's quite a lot of money that we are distributing. And that requires, I think, for each Bureau member, it requires more responsibility, and also more responsibility in consultation with the members of their groups and so on. And I think this concern should be mentioned to the Council when the Council make this decision, because it is. I mean, as less countries, less members you've got in the Bureau, as less divided, as less pluralistic would we be in our decision making. I think it's really going to be narrow if it's only 6 members.
But what's your conclusion? You want to follow? You want to have the Council debate it?
I think the Council should make the decision. I don't have a final recommendation for the Council. I just raise this concern and raise the flag that it's not just to reduce because it said we have to reduce. It's also about our responsibility.
Yes, sure.
I just would like to support what of my colleagues. Just to ask a question, is this a recommendation or a decision that has to be followed? Okay. So,
It's a recommendation that needs to be implemented by the membership.
okay, because as we always speak that we need this diversity and to make sure that all the groups that is presented or someone can communicate and coordinate with them to deliver their concerns or interests. So if this not like a decision to be taken and implemented, then it can be negotiated and discussed in the council.
Of course, like the General Conference is the highest institution in the decision-making hierarchy of UNESCO. But of course, if they make an unwise decision, we need to tell them. But I think it's important for today that I just, before giving the floor again to the Democratic Executive, to the other members of the Bureau to hear their opinion. Please.
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. Je pense aussi, comme l'ont exprimé mes deux prédécesseurs, que même si le Conseil, c'est à lui qui revient la décision finale, je pense que c'est une question extrêmement importante. C'est même une préoccupation parce que, comme l'a dit notre ami du Danemark, au regard de l'ampleur des tâches, réduire le nombre de bureaux augmenterait les tâches pour ce même bureau. Or, en termes de tâches, véritablement, afin de réduction de charges, parce que je suppose que c'est ça l'idée aussi quelque part. Parce que je ne vois pas où sont les charges pour l'UNESCO. Est-ce que le fait que le bureau soit composé de 8 membres représente une charge financière quelque part? Si c'était le cas, j'aurais compris le souci de l'UNESCO. Mais puisqu'il n'y a pas de charge financière, et puisque aussi il faut tenir compte, comme l'a dit la représentante de Oman, de la question de la représentativité géographique, c'est important aussi à prendre en compte. Je pense que pour toutes ces considérations, cette question mérite une réflexion approfondie. Même si par ailleurs, je le répète, le dernier mot revient au Conseil. Voilà.
John?
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of repeating what my colleagues have already said, I want to mention here that I think what we would like to see IPDC is to see how actually we can make it work better. So, meaning, what we are supposed to do is not reducing the number of the people, it's just making sure that they work as a region, because there should be proper consultation if it's in a region. We must find a way of ensuring that actually whoever is representing a group must be able to organize that group so that they work together. And that's a very big task. If we reduce the number, it means we are not doing, we are giving whoever is going to remain, those few people, a very big task unless we'll be able to fund them so that they can be able to organize those people. But otherwise, it's for me, as my colleagues have already said, I think the best is just to see how we can actually make these offices more effective. Thank you.
Thank you. Goya, you want to say? Okay. So my conclusion then would be that the Bureau is divided on this, and that the only recommendation the Bureau can give is that the Council reflects on it, and that we somehow find a wording like the Secretariat to reflect what has been said around the table, and then bring it up on the agenda of the next council to come back on it.
Just very brief, and of course we are not trying now to breach the rules that the UNESCO has made, because if they made the rules that we must do it like this, then we have to, of course, to find a way. It's not that we got, each of us get more tasks because we got the same task, I think, or the coming bureau members. It's the responsibility that is increasing. That's what I think they should reflect on the council. Of course, we're not going to.
But I think it's important that we, at the council meeting, maybe first start the discussion with the clarification by the legal advisor of UNESCO, and then the council can have an informed debate on it and see whether or not they want to claim an exception to the rule. Yes, can we take it like that? This is for the draft bureau recommendation to the council, but we still have on the item itself a draft decision by the bureau to be made. Can we have that on the screen? It's there already. Maybe you want to read it, Rosa?
Yes. The Bureau. No, it's not there yet. Is it? Oh, it's missing the first sentence. Okay, yeah. The Bureau, having considered the recommendations of the working group, may wish to recommend to the Council to take note of the general recommendations for all international and intergovernmental bodies, IIBs, of the open-ended working group on governance, 39C20 and 39C17, and of General Conference Resolution 39C Res 87, and identify those recommendations that may require immediate implementation as per attached table. Take action on the specific recommendations addressed to IPDC, and reaffirm the importance of the intergovernmental nature of the IPDC governing bodies, while retaining a high level of expertise in the media development field, by requesting the respective country delegations to backstop expert council members, ensuring proper communication and follow-up. Request the Secretariat to provide Bureau members with clear, objective criteria for the approval of projects, also in line with the recommendations of the external evaluation of the IPDC program. Reaffirm current roles of Bureau and Council in selection of projects, taking note of the conclusions of the external evaluation of the IPDC program. Revise the current program priorities within the framework of the new strategic framework recommended by the external evaluation, and ensure more balanced consideration of all priorities, including capacity building.
Thank you. And then we need to add what we just said, maybe, because I think from the 8 to 6 members, I think we need to have a line on that.
Mr. Chair, maybe it's not necessary, because here we are putting that take note of the General Conference in the first paragraph, no? And then identify those recommendations that require immediate implementation. So as the table of the Secretariat that has prepared says which recommendations should be implemented immediately, maybe in the table we could put something that you mentioned. Let me check the table. In the recommendation 67, to put something that you say the Bureau agrees to submit this recommendation for reflection and final decision of the Council. In this part, that the Bureau agrees to submit this recommendation for reflection or for debate, I don't know, for reflection and final decision of the Council. And then it's not necessary to put which recommendations we are not agree or just like that, because even with the other recommendation that the specific, I have some comments to do with the issue of the roles of the bureau and the council, because in this, for example, in the table we have put the bureau agrees to recommend the
Maybe,
yes,
maybe we can.
after
I think this
I
is.
can, yeah.
If you look at the table, there was one issue which we spoke about a little longer, and in which the bureau is divided, and which we want to put before the council. I think if we do not explicitly mention it, be a risk that the council may not discuss it, or somebody has to bring to the attention. I think it's more open and transparent to say, okay, this is another issue on which the council needs to take a decision. And because here, the bureau, having considered, wishes to recommend to the council to take action, and the council has to take action on the recommendation 67. So it's fair to put it there. Yeah.
And when we put in other paragraphs the issue of the, okay.
So we take
I am flexible.
Yeah.
Ambassador.
Okay, thank you. Also, we can use the same formulation that we just drafted for the table, and we put it here as a point of action for the council.
So you want this after takes action on the specific recommendations, there would be one more paragraph on this, because one possibility would be the first bullet, take note of the general recommendations, identify those recommendations that may require immediate implementation as per that table, and take action as appropriate. Because all recommendations will have comments from the Bureau. So in that way, we imply that action needs to be taken on all of them according to the recommendations of the Bureau within the table. Because this may not be the only one. So at the end, if we add and take action as needed or accordingly, then we are then implying that some action may be necessary. Am I making sense?
Maybe just to understand this right, you are suggesting to put this now under the first bullet.
At the end of the first bullet, after the brackets where it says as per attached table, then to add and take action as needed.
No.
No?
No.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, but the problem is that we are drafting something very, very long that is not necessary. Because I understand the point of Rosa. Maybe we could say, take action of the relevant recommendations with that they are linked with the IPDC. No. It's not necessary to take notes of all the general recommendations, because all the general recommendations, all the bodies has taken notes, and now all the bodies what has to do is to implement. So as the ambassador said, we have to take action of the pertinent recommendations with the program. That is, as and then you can put as noted or as they are contained in the attached table. And it's not necessary. Well, yes, we have to take action of the pertinent recommendations or the general recommendations of and we have to delete for all international and blah blah, and only to put the pertinent recommendations of the open Wendy group, the pertinent recommendations to the IPDC program, or take action of the general recommendations. The pertinent general.
I think that now we're feeling we're confusing things. I think you're right in saying there's general recommendations, and the recommendations to reduce the number from 8 to 6 is a general one, which is for all IIBs.
Yes,
and then
yes, you are right.
And then there's other which are specifically. So I think the first bullet is about the general recommendations, and the second bullet take action on specific recommendations for the IPDC. So maybe I would like to follow Rosa's suggestion that we add something to the first bullet at the end. Now we say identify those recommendations that may require immediate implementation. Now we are confronted with one recommendation that doesn't need immediate implementation, but which needs further discussion. So we should then say, identify those recommendations that need further discussion and others that may require immediate implementation. Then the council can go to the list and say, okay, this specific recommendation concerning the reduction of the members of the Bureau from 8 to 6 can be discussed.
President, sorry, but there are some general recommendations that in this table we have to take action. Yes, so how we are going to reflect that?
I mean, the difference between implementation and action, I think implementation is also taking action, in my view. So.
Okay. So the first bullet would read, take note of the general recommendations for all international intergovernmental bodies of the open-ended working group on governance and of General Conference Resolution 39/87, and identify those recommendations that may need further discussion and those that may require immediate implementation as per attached table. Would this be satisfactory?
Only one change, Mr. President, not to put may, because may is something that's a possibility, but it's not a possibility. We have to identify. So we identify the recommendations that require immediate implementations and also further discussion. May be it, yes.
Yes. So identify those recommendations that need further discussion and those that require immediate implementation as per attached table.
Yes, is that acceptable to all? Is then the whole decision acceptable to everybody?
Take note of the general recommendations for all IIBs, of the open-ended working group on governance, and of General Conference Resolution, I won't mention the numbers, and identify those recommendations that need further discussion and those that require immediate implementation as per attached table.
Yeah. Le français est aussi accord? Le français est bon?
C'est bon.
Merci. Second bit hasn't changed, huh?
It hasn't changed, so.
Okay, I take it then that we... Okay, now I thought we... So now we go to the second bullet. Any remarks on the second bullet? Yep.
Thank you, Chair. In this bullet, we are not very agreed with the Secretariat with the issue of the recommendation, the specific recommendation, let me take it, that is examine, this, oh yes, this is good. Only not to put a high level of experts expertise, because you know, Mr. Chair, in the case of our country, we don't have any expert here in the bureau. We have trying to bring someone to help us with this issue, but and there are other countries, for example, our dear colleague from Niger, he is intergovernmental representative. So it's not necessary to put a high level of expertise, because this is blocking the participation of the
suggestion
intergovernmental.
to take high level out, or
No, only we have to put what the recommendation of the General Conference says. The General Conference says reaffirm the intergovernment nature, especially of the Bureau, or maybe we can put reaffirm the importance of the intergovernmental nature of the IPDC governing bodies, because they are, while returning retaining expert engagement, as is set in the recommendation of the General Conference, and the lead high level of expertise in the media development field, because not all the representatives of the governments are experts in media, as is our cases, for example, you and me and other countries. And then we can live with the rest of the phrase, that is by requesting the respective country to back up. That is good.
Okay, is it clear to the?
So do you want me to? Okay, yes, high level of expertise in the media development field should be deleted, and we put while retaining expert engagement, as is in the decision of the General Conference. While retaining expert engagement, and then we can. Yes, it's not problem for us, because stop en español.
No, what I'm suggesting is that if the Bureau wants to stick to the formulation of the working group, then maybe you just need to say take action on the specific recommendations addressed to IPDC, period. Because here the reason why these are worded in such a way is that this was providing additional considerations to the Council on how to go about this. But if you want to stick to the wording of the working group, then there's no need to repeat.
Yes.
You can just say take action on the specific recommendations addressed to IPDC.
Yes.
So we can, basically the conclusion is that you made this text because you think special action is needed, and Maria thinks that no action is needed. If you want to stick to the but you just said is repeating the recommendation of the, so then there's no action needed. So then we can delete the whole para. So because this recommendation is in the table. Yeah.
We take action on the specific recommendations addressed to IPDC as per attached table.
Yeah. Yeah, then we can avoid the whole. Okay, so we skip the whole. The shorter the better. Huh? That's it. So also, en français, c'est clair qu'on va biffer simplement tout le texte spécifique. Okay, can everybody accept?
I have only some disagreement with the Secretary regarding the table. In the specific recommendation to the IPDC, there is in the document of the General Conference is the ATAC when it said examine roles of Bureau and Council in selection of projects. I am not very sure that the practice now is satisfactory. Even Mr. Chair, some countries have said during the debates of the General Conference on the working group that it's necessary that the projects, for example, could be put in online so that all the countries could see which projects are going to be examined by the bureau. I am not saying that the council has to decide all the projects because it's a very technical issue, it's a very practical issue that is not possible for how many members are in the council? For 39 members.
This also will come back in the strategic framework from the evaluation.
Yes, so but not to put that the practice, that the actual practice is satisfactory because it's not so satisfactory.
So which number are you now?
The examine role is in the specific recommendations of the Intergovernmental Council. Examine is the page 9. Page 9 is the third one. Examine roles of Bureau and Council in selection of projects. There are some countries that have said that why the Bureau decide all the projects. They don't understand that this is a very, very heavy work that it could not be done by 39 countries. But not to put that this is satisfactory, to put that the bureau recommends to present these recommendations for improvement by I don't know, but it's not totally satisfactory.
Maybe we can.
Maybe
if other members agree, because this reflects what is in the evaluation. So if we replace this text by the bureau recognizes that this has been addressed in the evaluation, and we will
and to recommend to improve it, this current improve this process because there are some.
So we say the bureau recognizes that these problems have been addressed in the evaluation, and will come back on it in the strategic framework.
Yes, because even, Mr. Chair, the recommendation of the external evaluator number 7 says the project selection process should be reviewed and refined to enhance efficiency and transparency. And this is an issue of transparency too, maybe.
So we need to only to refer to the specific recommendation, and then it's clear that it's not satisfactory, but that it needs to be improved.
Because it's not a reality. Thank you, sir.
Yes, is that clear? So you say the bureau recognizes that this recommendation is also part of the evaluation, or that the bureau recognizes that this problem is addressed by the external evaluation recommendation number 7. Full stop.
One question. The Bureau recommends to the Council to continue with current practices. This is the lead debt.
Okay, just that the decision is accepted. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we do not deserve our coffee yet, but we need to continue with the other important issue, the projects. Am I correct about that? Financial situation. Oh, no, I think the financial situation we can do. We can try to do that before the coffee. We have half an hour before the for the tea. No. Let's start. Rosa?
Yes, thank you, Chair. You have different reports in your package, which are not so user-friendly, some of them. So we have prepared some tables on the screen so that it's easier for you to see where we are. So the first table, which you see there, we already mentioned this briefly this morning. So it shows what was done last year. So you have already heard about this. Total number of projects, 63, 1.5 million through earmarked and non-earmarked. And to that, you have to add the funds in trust projects that are also listed there. So I think that there's no need to say anything else about last year. So if we move on, this also was presented very well by colleague Gihan. So this is the breakdown of earmarked projects, so no need to go into detail. And these are the figures for earmarked ones. So you have all that in your documents. So if we move on.
Can I?
Okay.
This
So
is including the Dutch.
okay, so this is what we have now on the table for the current projects. So this is the funding for non-earmarked projects. So this is the funding that you were given when you started your assessments online. So the first column is the total amount available for projects, because the second column is the 10% that UNESCO keeps as program support costs. So the third column is the overall total that we need to have, but that doesn't go to projects. So it's the first column that we worked with. This is the amount that you already started allocating online and that we will have to finish allocating here. So $834,227. If we move on, the next table shows you the contributions for earmarked projects. So these are contributions by donors who have already picked a number of initiatives that they wish to support. And you have the documents also in your package so that you can see all the details. So this is mainly the contribution from the Netherlands for the IPDC talks in the field, support to national safety mechanisms. Then there's also an earmark contribution from Finland, also for the IPDC talks in the MENA region. And then there's an earmark contribution from Canada for a particular project fighting hatred and improving media reporting on terrorism and violent extremism. All these contributions add up to a total amount of $441,330, including PSC. Then funds in trust this year, we have two projects. One is financed by, or it's pledged by Sweden. It's under discussion right now, but it's an important project with a high budget, so that's why we have already included it here, so that you know that this is in the pipeline. And it's part of a larger project that UNESCO has been formulating these past few months together with SIDA. And the IPDC component is the one focusing on assessments conducted with IPDC indicators. So that's media development indicators, journalism safety indicators, and the internet universality indicators. So if approved, this will allow very important work applying these sets of indicators. Then there's also another funds in trust, also pledged, not yet confirmed, which is the second phase of the Malaysian project on reporting on climate change that you heard about earlier. So the total of these two funds in trust projects is $1,620,757. So the grand total of funds pledged this year is almost $3 million. Also, this figure was reported earlier this morning. And the next table shows you, if you go down a little bit, maybe we cannot, because the most important information is at the bottom. So it shows, but maybe you can look at your paper copies. It shows how funding has been evolving these past few years. So we can see that in 2011, the level of funding was about 2.6 million. The year after, in 2012, it decreased significantly to 1.6 million. Oh yes, and if you look at the table, it's document CI 18, Bureau 62, 3.4. Table, color table. Then the amount continued to decrease in 2013 to 1 million. In 2014, it remained at 1 million level. In 2015, it remained also at that level. It slightly decreased. Then we can see that in 2016, it picks up significantly. We go back to 1.6 million. Last year, it continued to go up to more than 2 million. And then this year, thanks to some important projects, it has gone up to 3 million. So I think that we have an interesting curve that we hope it will continue going up. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I hope you can ride the wave. Maybe just one remark. Some of you may have seen that this morning we talked about the IPDC talks. I'm saying it also as a Dutch, but maybe Lotte can also add to that. The Dutch government has again decided to give an important sum of money to IPDC, but we decided that after 2 times financing the IPDC talks in headquarters, which was the most expensive IPDC talks, that we wanted to shift focus to the IPDC talks in the field. So this is also a decision that was a consequence of the human rights policies in the Netherlands. But it does leave a gap that unless another donor steps up and wants to provide the money for the IPDC talks in headquarters, there will be no IPDC talks in headquarters this year. So maybe Lotte can say a little more how the shift has changed in say, focusing on human rights policies.
Well, we have a new government, and the government decided to focus more on the ring around Europe. So.
Okay, just because the new government has said the focus should be on outside Europe, and of course Paris is the headquarters of UNESCO, but it is in Europe, and we have less money than last year, so we decided that we should not put so much of our money in Paris. I recognize the observers from Norway. Do you have a comment on your important contributions? Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, this is, of course, this doesn't need a decision by the Bureau. So, if there are no further comments, we can still do another topic before we have coffee. Rosa? Okay, Denmark?
I just want one remark while you said about the focus inside or outside Europe. I just want to raise the awareness of what happens in Europe these years. There's a rising problem regarding media freedom. We have seen journalists being killed in the EU countries. So I just raised this flag that we have always said that we should look outside Europe because there are, and I agree on that. I agree with there are very, very big challenges outside Europe. I really agree on that. But we have to have some awareness about what happens in Europe and at this moment in the former East Bloc countries. There's press freedom is in a decline in a way that we haven't expected, I would say. So just have this remark.
I fully agree with you that, of course, when we talk about safety of journalists, it's not just a problem of the South, it's a problem more and more in our countries. And like in the Netherlands, there was recently a report produced by the number of threats that journalists receive, which has increased enormously. So I do agree, but the motivation, it's also maybe this IPDC talks is something that we should be carried by all donors. And I think you cannot expect one donor to do. Okay. No, I agree, but just to... Yeah, you're absolutely right, and I hope we can raise it again at the World Press Freedom Day that starts tomorrow. Rosa, sorry, Maria?
Thank you, Chair. Only I would like to stress something that maybe in the previous Bureau meeting we underlined. Is the issue that it's very important that the program could be have more funding from the general budget from UNESCO. Yes, we appreciate very much that the donors and many countries, particularly from the Group 1, supports very much the program, but that is very important to align also the program with the C5 and to try to get funding also from the general budget, because otherwise, let me tell you what for example, some countries from my regional group also said about the program. They consider that sometimes the program is a table of donors, and this is not true. So maybe we need to how do you say to delete this maybe this vision that is not correct, because only we have this kind of documents. It should be very useful if the Secretary could prepare, for example, how we are going to align with the C5. Do you remember that even in the C5 and the financial and the other resolution of the General Conference and the Executive Board talks about this?
This could be an important topic when we discuss the evaluation, which underlines the importance of the program and the wider positive effect of the program. Something that the Council maybe could pick up. And then, of course, given the new leadership of the organization and also the incoming new ADG, this could be a good message to him.
Yes,
somebody has to.
Yes, and maybe this could be one of the debate topics for the Council for the next November. That is very important.
Come back on it.
Yes, thank you, sir.
Denmark, please.
Yes, I shall come back to the figures. Sorry for going into another topic before. If you look at the earmark projects, we have got some documents previously about some of the gender projects, and I've seen some figures where some of the gender projects don't seem to have been started yet. What are the situations? And it seems that the gender projects in Bangladesh, Bhutan, and Maldives.
Rosa, can you comment on that?
Yes, I think that, yes. Actually, we provided, or BFM, or Bureau of Financial Management, provided the usual report as of 31st December. And we requested another one as of 28th February, so that we could have also these 2 months, these 2 first months of the year included. So then the implementation rate increased significantly because it reflected expenditure that was in the pipeline. So we reached a percentage of 82%, which today must be higher already because we are in May. So, but it's true that there were some projects in Asia which were quite late. The reason actually was mentioned earlier when we were discussing the challenges. The reason for those projects to be late was that they received significantly lower amounts. So our field colleague was fundraising with other sources so that he could start with a higher amount. So he delayed the launching of the projects, but he has actually now contracted the beneficiaries for all of them. So today the percentage of the implementation rate would be higher, but already as of 28th February was 82%.
Okay, then Mark, is it any other remarks on the financial tables? If not, thank you, Rosa, for this. What do we do now? We have coffee and then coffee. Is the coffee already there? Yes. Then we break for coffee for 15 minutes and then have one more item before we come on the project. Yes. See you in 15 minutes. let's start working on that. We shall first start, as usual, with the non-earmarked projects. You all received
of the special initiatives are funded is with the special allocations that the Bureau agrees to. So here you have in front of you in document CI 18 Bureau 62.5 four proposals for special allocations. So the first, these are very small amounts. The first one is to continue with the media and internet related indicators work, and an amount of $5,000 is requested to hire some temporary assistance for the pre-testing that is currently taking place. Also, you have in the column called recent allocations some background on the most recent allocations that the Bureau already made in the past for this same special initiative. For journalism education, we mentioned before this specialized syllabi on fake news. So an amount of $10,000 is being requested to promote the syllabi, which has already been prepared. Also for the work on monitoring progress towards SDGs, participation in global coordination mechanisms, feasibility study on an eventual reporting mechanism, or how to collect gender disaggregated data. All these would need some financial support for consultant contracts and related travel, and an amount of $15,000 is being requested for that. And finally, to already start developing or improving the communication platform as it's been requested by the external evaluation, we are requesting an amount of $15,000 to do some development work for the communication platform. So altogether, it's $45,000. And once again, be aware that it doesn't come from the budget that you have been allocating to projects, but if approved, the requested amounts will be funded from balances of past closed projects. Thank you.
There's no proposed decision yet for the...
There's no text, but if it's approved, this will be part of the table that you will see. You will see right away. By the way, it's on the table of approved allocations.
Any remarks? Yes, Morgan?
Two small remarks on this. We have done that many times. These special allocations. They are very short described here, while the special all the projects and programs they have a big description on them. So I'm just wondering if that's the methodology that we don't get more information than it's on paper here on these things. And the second question is about the strengthening monitoring the SDGs. That must be partly the CI sector dealing with this, isn't that so?
request to send information on killings of journalists, except this is not information on that. This is about what is your achievement in terms of access to information. So this is our interest in this. And I should mention also that in each year at the General Assembly there is a review of progress on the SDGs. Next year, 2019, there will be a high-level political forum to review progress on SDG 16. And so what we want to do is also find ways we can get not sort of only statistical data for the whole world, but find some good case studies we can encourage countries to go and present in New York to show that actually they are making progress. So the monitoring would improve the quantitative and also develop some qualitative information, and to see if we can't find a mechanism whereby on a regular basis we could ask states to, maybe 1 year we ask states in GRULAC to tell us what are their good stories. The next year we do Africa. These are issues we would have to research under this particular proposal. What are the possible options for a mechanism? And then we would have to present that mechanism to the IPDC Council to say, is there appetite for a formal mechanism of monitoring SDG 1610 too?
Yes, Rosa?
Yeah, just to add to what Guy said concerning the remark about the fact that this is very succinct and doesn't give details. Actually, there is the report on the special initiatives that you were presented earlier, and that's where we report on the substance, what is done. This is only a quick table to show you what we will need to continue with that action.
Yes, clear? Can we then decide on this?
1 second.
Okay, thank you. So now we move on to the projects. Let me first remind you that all the projects that were proposed were submitted by the UNESCO field officers or directly by proposed project implementers via the IPDC online platform. You all received an email 6 weeks ago providing access to the online platform with the proposals and inviting you to evaluate these. And prior to this, the project proposals have undergone it's very serious 3-level preparation. So the responsible field officers worked on it with potential beneficiary media organizations locally to improve the proposals and ensure that they meet the IPDC priorities and presentation standards. Once submitted to headquarters, the proposals were reviewed in detail by the Secretariat within the CI and fine-tuned again with the responsible UNESCO field offices. Once finalized, the proposals were evaluated by the IPDC Secretariat, which provided recommendations to the Bureau members on the level of priority and funding that could be considered by the members on each and every proposal. Normally, only 1 project per country should be considered, 2 projects for LDCs, and 1 regional project for each office. For Somalia and Senegal, due to an oversight, the project list only includes 3, so please take into account that only 2 can be approved. For the Kingston office, 2 regional projects have been accepted as an exception and at the request of the chair due to the recent hurricane disaster. As you may have seen, there are 103 projects that were submitted for non-earmarked funding, which we will discuss first, and then 5 projects for earmarked funding. So it's important to underline that the Secretariat didn't do a pre-selection, but provided information to have a clear, to help you facilitate your decision-making process. So each Bureau member was asked to rank the project either as a priority or a non-priority. And thank you all for doing this work. there was agreement among Bureau members on all but 9 of the projects. So, as done in previous years, we suggest that we focus on these 9 projects. There was disagreement, which means that 2 or more Bureau members were in disagreement on the level of priority, or there was disagreement because 3 or more Bureau members were not agreeing on the level of funding. So again, we now have to take the final decisions, and of course it's clear that there's only so much money as we have, so we cannot simply say, okay, we take the maximum for everything and then we're done. We have to, if we add something here, we have to take off somewhere else what we added to the other one. So how will we go about? The Secretariat will screen the online decisions. These decisions total the prior allocation of, it was mentioned before, 250,000 US dollars, which leaves an available amount of 152.877 US dollars for the 9 projects. This is the money that will really go to the project, so the 10% is already deducted. We also have earmarked projects, but those will follow afterwards. So there you see it on the screen. You also have a print in front of you, because I guess it will be difficult to read this from the distance. All projects are there, but as you can see, the yellow ones are the ones we need to discuss. So already number 1 is the yellow one, which is concerning a project in Nigeria, strengthening Kakaki community radio for improved service delivery and enhanced community participation. Here we can see that members of the Bureau had a difference, but correct me if I'm wrong, Rosa or somebody else. There was a difference not on priority of the project, but on the amount of funding. I see that the project requested, so there are, Denmark suggested 20,000, Poland suggested 20,320, Mongolia 20,320, and Oman again 20. So we have to find a way to gap the difference of 320 US dollar. So how much time are we going to spend on that?
Sir, thank you so much. First of all, I would like to apologize that Ecuador couldn't evaluate all the projects because we were in the executive board, and then so maybe we can now take the opportunity we consider also that this project is a priority, and we agree with the amounts that the rest of the Bureau has mentioned.
Does anybody have suggestion how we can gap this enormous difference? Facts.
I can follow that to add 320 US dollars if that's the.
Anybody more?
but we just have to ensure at the end of the day that we have got money enough.
Well, if we can't find it, we go around with a hat and then we put money in it.
I think we can find $320. That's fine.
Can the Secretariat, let me first ask, can all the members accept that but there's one question I have, because if I look at the amount requested from IPDC, it lists in the yellow list here, it says 20,070. So, Rosa, in the yellow, on the big table, it says 20,070, and the recommended amount was to 20,320. So why is the difference there? I'm not mistaken.
It must be a mistake. It must be a mistake. So it should be 20,000 to round up.
Why is it then?
This is requested from IPDC, which is also reflected in the table.
Yeah.
So about this one, you see, transfer Exigency. And then the field members recommend 20,000.
Okay, so some of you recommended more than they asked for.
No, the budget they asked for.
Yeah, but that's not on the table.
On the table, it's correct. It's 20,070. What is not correct is the amount proposed by the Secretariat. Yeah, but in any case, everybody rounded up to 20. Well, not everybody. No, I
So
see.
if we say 2070, it's okay.
Or 20 or 20,000 to round out to a round figure.
Okay, but then I'm still puzzled by the fact why, for example, Mongolia had to, because huh? Yes, but it's yeah. But we need to clarify this because it's a very small amount, but
The problem is that there's one amount in the budget breakdown of 20,320 and then a different amount on the first page, but it's a very small difference of $350.
okay, so we stick to the 20,320 as the decision. Yes? So you're not going to spend more time on a couple of $100. So then we move to the project number 5, also in Africa. Let me check here. We see the amount requested is 19,500. Is that correct? Because here I see 20,000.
They will be requesting, and we are showing the total cost of the project will be 20,000. The request is 19,500.
Which document you have now in front of you? Yeah. Oh God. Yes.
Yeah, the reason why it doesn't coincide is because what coincides with the numbers of the table is a 900-page document with all the project documents. So this is just an extract with the 9 projects that you need to discuss. But we will be clarifying with the right numbers.
Okay, but so now
So
on the list on the screen is project number 5. But it's a reinforcement of capacities for civil radio, for young people, for the promotion of civil. Okay. So indeed, the document you have in front of you. Okay. Yeah. It's number 5, but there's number 2 that we need to discuss. And there, so another project in Africa, requested amount 19,500, and here we see that Denmark declared it a priority and allocated 15,000. Poland suggested improvements, and Mongolia also said it was a non-priority and that it so doesn't fit the criteria. So I think here we need to decide.
So I just said no priority because we are here missing our time frame, because they have the activity, because you know that in my opinion, the proposals must be, they should be very accurate and complete. So I don't think that this one is complete because the time frame is not given here. That's why, this is the reason why I reject. It's very important information indeed. Yeah.
No time frame. Okay, Poland also commented, but Poland is not here. The other one that commented was Denmark, which had a different position.
It's because the co-financing is not very high here. It's really a small amount. So that's why we have tried to point out that they should find more financing themselves for this project.
So maybe I see that those members who looked into it have doubts. Mongolia has a very strong doubt on the quality, and Denmark has also doubts, but if I may say it like this, rather see them come back with an improved plan, especially for the co-financing. So I would like to suggest that we do not decide on it to go ahead with it, but ask them to work on the program again, improve the timeline, and look for more co-sponsoring to make it more sustainable. Yes? Yes. So, but if they come back with an improved, then they have a second chance. So we do not approve this program now. Is that acceptable to all?
They can table it again next year.
Yes. I think they can take the comments to heart, and then you can. So the third project, which is number 11 on the screen, Gambia, building institutional capacity network of community radios and the Women Journalists Association. Here the requested amount is 25,010. Here we have, again, Denmark, who declared it a priority and wants to give 20,000 to the project. Poland had no comments, but declared the priority for 15,000. Mongolia had the same remarks, and the other one, the time frame is missing, which is crucial. And Oman agreed with the implementing baseline survey, but also had some doubts, if I may say it like that, and suggested 20,000. So there's a variety of opinions on it. So those members who have looked into it, the three of them declared a priority, but have other thoughts about the money, and Mongolia was more critical, saying it doesn't fit. So I don't know who wants to convince who. Maybe Denmark, you were the most positive. So I invite you to defend the program.
I mean, it described here. It's a quite big program, and it has a. I think it can have an impact, and you're right. Mongolia is of course right that there are lots to achieve also in regard of the description of the program. But looking at it and the extent of it and the importance of that, as we know, with the community media in Africa, I think it could have a good impact. So that's why we from Denmark were positive on this and were sure that with help it could be improved.
Thank you, Chair. We consider also that it's a priority of the program. The issue of the community development of the communication is important also for our region. So we support this project.
Thank you. I do also, as I mentioned, support the comments given from my colleagues. But I insist again that if we are going to support this project, not to reduce the amount required by a lot, then we will lose, as we discussed earlier, the impact or the objectives required to be achieved. Thank you.
So I feel the sympathy for this project is rising, and I also feel that of the 25,000 they asked, there's a tendency to reduce a little, but not too much, in order not to lose, especially the number of trainees, so to have to guarantee the impact of the program. Does the Secretariat have anything to add for this project?
Just a small point that the Bureau may wish to take into account. Gambia is still in transition, so it is a country, broadly speaking, that does merit support. So maybe you have some leniency towards weak points in the proposal.
Could we approve the program but ask the Secretariat and the regional office concerned to, before implementing, go over the project once more and see if the critical points of the Mongolian delegate can be taken on board? Is it acceptable for you? Yeah. And then I would say, 20,000.
You know that the competition is already very high, and it's it's just a basic requirement to improve the. So initial screening should be just look at if the proposal is complete or accurate. This is my position. But I think that decision can be taken by the majority, or it's 100%.
Yeah. I
Okay,
don't
I
think we
also
should.
can, you know, that
But we
I
can
also
also.
can send the proposal that I missing something, and if it proves, I would be happy. So in the next, in the future, I also would do the same thing.
But I think there are
If
obvious.
it's not a really high competition, and we can be flexible and ask them to resubmit the project and give the time frame and working plan. Why we are asking them to provide the working plan? Why?
I think if you look at the list, the whole list, there are many projects that are not approved already because there were, say, clearly the majority of members were against it. So we are focusing on those where members of the Bureau have different opinions. And of course, you can, but of course, I have to say, we go through the whole list and we look at the end where we stand. So if I would make a suggestion now, we say we can approve it for 20,000, but make sure that the Secretariat with the regional office goes over the project again to improve it. And if then, of course, there's no cooperation to improve it, then the Secretariat has to maybe come back on it. But in principle, I would like to approve it. Is that acceptable? Of course, you come back on the whole thing. Now we have the project number 34 in Somalia, harnessing the Somalia youth dividend through radio and listener clubs. We all have the project in front of us. Here the amount requested is 28,480 US dollar. Here Denmark.
Thank you. Just to bring to your attention the fact that we did not get the information that we requested on the issue of the license. So it's not clear if they already have a broadcasting license. Now one could wonder if this is necessary because maybe they could be planning to broadcast online, and maybe then a license would not be necessary. But if you look at the equipment that is being requested, it looks like it is for traditional broadcasting. So in that case, the license issue would be important. So we don't have the information saying that they do have a broadcasting license. It has not been provided to the Secretariat.
And what does it mean that you suggest that we wait, that we don't not decide on it now? Because I think the license will be crucial.
It is a formal requirement for IPDC projects that a radio station has a license before requesting assistance from IPDC. It's a formal requirement. So in this case, since we don't have the information, I think that it could not be approved.
Not approved or postponed? Not postponed. Okay. But we can.
I think you're on one now.
I would say, and if it's postponed, you have the opportunity to come back.
Yeah, next year.
And say, here's the license, and then we can look at it again.
Okay.
Yeah? Is that acceptable? Yeah, we don't know why they don't have the license, so maybe it's an administrative thing. Okay, so that one we keep pending. Then we move to the, let me see, where are we now? 36. This is number 5. Yeah, and that one is not numbered in this document. 30, number 5. So it is Namibia, training for journalists, broadcasters over community radio. Amount requested 12,000. I can see that Naran is very critical, and she should be, because I think she's looking at the criteria to fulfill. You simply said no priority. Was this again with the problems of that there was no clear timeline, or? Because we see that, again, Denmark and Poland, without further comments, declared it a priority for 12,000. Maybe other bureau members have now something to add. Gilbert, please.
Yes, Chair. I think this one needs to be supported. Though when I look at the gender part of it, it's like it's not a gender balance in terms of the people who will be involved. How they would love that if there are more, almost more women than men. But all the same, I think in a sense, training is the key in terms of these people to help themselves. So how do you support it? That is a priority.
You would support it as a priority.
Hello?
You will support it as a priority.
Yes.
Omar, please.
Regarding the breakdown of the contribution required, the majority of the amount is required for equipment. It's not clear what kind of equipment. I don't know if it's mentioned somewhere, but the cost is into tools and equipments rather than into something that will be, I don't know if you would like to consider it.
So you feel there's too much?
Yeah, it's
just for the hardware and
equipment, which usually it's not recommended as a.
Can the Secretariat maybe comment on that?
Yes, we agree actually. The breakdown is not good. It doesn't give enough information. The breakdown is not correct. It's a small budget, one may argue. It's $12,000, which is not a lot. But still, there's no balance between equipment and human resources. So sustainability issues may be an issue here. And yeah, the breakdown is back.
Yes, Nicola.
Thank you, President. Well, this is for me it's important project because it's pertaining with the community and the local languages. As you know, even the next year, UNESCO is promoting the issue of the indigenous languages of the next year. So maybe the program could provide some support to this project because even that the breakdown is not very clear, but the Secretariat, for example, says here the budget could have a better breakdown, particularly with regards to the DSA. And the Secretary also says a small sum that could make a positive difference to the local community. And then after says with some clarifications, a budget of 2,000, the 12,000 could be considered. So maybe with these clarifications, I don't know if the Secretary could ask about the breakdown again, but maybe we could support this. It's not very much, we understand that, but it's an important issue.
Rosa, please.
Just maybe to add that, yes, the breakdown is not detailed, but if you look at the section called project inputs, there we have a description actually of the equipment that they plan to buy. Although it doesn't say how much for each component, but there's some detail of the equipment that is to be bought under project inputs.
But the other question.
Yes, Chair. Maybe you could ask the Secretary to find out if they could give us a breakdown of the equipment they would like to buy. Maybe we can help. Because really, it's a good project because it's helping community. I know I've been in Namibia, I know they have a language problem and the population is so young. There are very few and they need to be helped. They're just a young nation. But we need to know what sort of equipment could cost all this amount. How they've thought maybe they've just hired lecturers if it means going to a college. Maybe they could just hire instructors at a lower cost than this one. I think there should be colleges where they train the radio producers and things. Maybe the Secretary could find out exactly what type of equipment do they want to buy.
The Secretary, do you think that the breakdown can be improved in this sense? Is it easy to do, or is the fault bigger?
Well, actually, if the project was approved, the next step is to draft a contract with the submitting partner. So there they are obliged to provide a detailed breakdown of how they're planning to spend the amount. So that's for sure. That they will, if approved, they will have to provide a very detailed breakdown.
Maybe Naran, you can, because you were clearly not positive on this project.
Of course, you know that actually I support this community initiatives and this community broadcasting by my heart, but this proposal is quite skeptical because they are having just a lunch training, yeah? And requesting the equipment for this. So if the training is important for them or is equipment important for them, the question is so. Okay. But as a support of the community, of course it's very important.
So I feel that the general feeling is it's important to support this local initiative. It is unclear. It's clear that they need equipment. That's clear. That's unclear which equipment exactly, but that can be clarified. And then the second thing is, if they have the equipment, do they have the capacity to do also the training part? And that, I think that is also what Oman said. That's not clear, but still, even without the training component being fulfilled to 100%, it's still an important project. So there's, I feel, a certain sympathy to go ahead with it. Is that right? Yes. You too? So we prove it for 12,000. Then we come to project 38 in Cameroon, which is number 6 on the list. Renforcement des capacités des médias sur le traitement de l'information sans stéréotype de genre. So, this is clearly a gender-oriented project.
You also support it for the full amount? Paid. We're going to pay full. 34,000? Yeah. Do you have any?
Merci bien, Monsieur le Président. Je joins ma voix à celles qui m'ont précédé pour également appuyer ce projet qui vient de Palestine. Parce que quand on prend en considération le contexte politique dans cette sous-région qui est fait de haine, de violence, d'injustice, on va même ajouter. Je pense que c'est une thématique importante qui mérite d'être soutenue et accompagnée. Je suis d'accord, c'est sur le montant qui a été proposé.
Just tell the reason why I reduced it to 25. Actually, I should have reduced it to 24,000. I don't think we normally support production of concrete programs. It's 10,000 for programs. For broadcasting.
Can you comment on that, Rosa?
Yes, well, in the past IPDC, it's true that it has not supported the production per se. It's one of the things that are communicated to the leaders, except if the production is part of a bigger project. So it can be one component of a training project, for example, after which some production, some content can be produced. So it is accepted if it's part of a bigger project with media development objectives. But the production of a documentary per se, for example, would not be accepted. So this is the distinction that we make.
I think there's a vast majority in favor of this project, but I do feel that if the colleague from Mongolia is saying that there's no work there, which is, I think we have to be careful not to just automatically support projects, especially with such an important amount of money, because we feel sympathy for the project, for the problems in the country, but we have to also make sure that the activity that we are financing is really contributing to reduce the problem that Palestine is faced with. If the project is lacking only to the opinion of Mongolia a serious work plan, maybe the others who support it can say a little more why they believe in it and why they think it should work.
Thank you, Chair. I think that's the more reason why we should insist on ensuring that the field offices should assist these people who are writing project proposals to follow the right format of writing project proposals. If we have, like in Zambia, we have what we call National IPDC Committee, I think that's the part of the reason why it exists, to help those who are submitting project proposals on how they can write a project. Yes. They have the idea that this is what they want to do, but it's only how to go about it. I think that's where the problem is. So we need to assist them where we find such a lapse. I think that's my opinion. I believe that's what we should be doing.
I agree with you, but then I would like to ask the Secretary today, they may know best about the program too. Do you believe that the fact that the work plan is lacking is compensated by other elements in the proposal?
Actually, I was actually thinking that it's quite surprising that the work plan is not there, because when you look at the budget breakdown, it's very detailed. So they really took the time to provide detail on how the funds are going to be spent. So one would even think that maybe it was a technical issue with the work plan field, because it's well developed, they provide a lot of information. It's a solid institution, which is known to us for doing good work. So it is surprising. It could be a technical issue. That would explain why the work plan was not filled in.
Okay, so addressing hate speech, especially in Palestine, is very important. I understand it. So if others support, I wouldn't really reject.
Thank you. So,
just please talk to them and to provide the working plan for signing.
Since Oman, before the last year, we also had a proposal for IPDC, if you remember. And before Oman was being a bureau member. So actually I was in contact with the Doha, I think, office, who were following me and clarifying if there is missing elements. And so I wonder how this proposal was submitted with missing piece. However, there are a lot of breakdown as mentioned with a lot of details, and it would be maybe a good idea to ask them to provide this, maybe as you said, it's a technical error, or because with all this comprehensive proposal and all these details, I believe it must be missed somewhere, but somehow, but not like a weak proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, but this is, I think, a clear message to the country office and the secretariat to, if such an important, crucial element is missing, but say on the first or of the first examination just shows that it's a serious program, that this should be clarified before it arrives at the bureau. But I think with this provision, I feel that we all declare it a priority. Then we still have to look into the amount. 25,000 was suggested by Denmark. All the others suggest the full amount. Can Denmark accept that we give them what they ask? Yes? Should we do that? So that's in line with the suggestion of the Secretariat, so the budget should be there. Yes? Okay. Thank you. We have 16 minutes. But we could go on a little more because the
rejected, taking into account that it's a similar project that was accepted by Argentina, and is approved by Argentina and Uruguay, and this is the same case, for example,
from Colombia. That the two, they are the government institutions that have presented this issue, and is in line with this agreement that Latin America signed with Uruguay before. So I would like some...
Yeah, so but maybe we can do that, because like we agreed in the beginning, we will first go through the 9 projects, which is the yellow ones. If we could do that, then we have an overall picture, and then we can maybe discuss this further. So, yes. So if we can go back to project 89, which is number 8 on the document, concerning a regional project from the Office of Montevideo, building civil society capacity to promote pluralism in the media system for 20,000. Here we see that Poland has declared it a priority and suggested to give a little less than was asked for. Oman declared it an important project with a broad regional importance and suggested to give the full amount. The others have not commented so far, if I'm not mistaken. So here, Mongolia declared it a non-priority. So we have two members of the Bureau, of which Poland is not present, who declared it a priority. Just Thank
you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I think during our last review meeting, we agreed that the regional project should be given priority. And I feel that this project is a priority and should be given the full amount.
Okay, thank you for your other supporters. No surprise. They're from the region, so.
Yes, because we are even taking into account the comments from the secretary and the secretary in that it is important what the colleague from Zambia said, even Albania was looking at one of the criteria for select the project of the regional project. Thank you so much.
Can Denmark also support the idea that it's a regional project that should be given priority?
I think this project is difficult for me to get what the impact is. What is going to happen? It's more about dissemination information. What is about saying a bit concerned, but I think that the chair is also concerned. Maybe you, the chair, could also tell you
Yes, actually this project is about knowledge dissemination and advocacy on press freedom issues. And they focus on UNESCO reference materials, recent publications that would be promoted. And for those who know Observacom, it's like an observatory of communication issues. And they have a very effective online newsletter that is produced, I think, once a week on different issues in the region. So it's taking into account by decision makers. It's I would say, on the edge of what is happening in the region, in the field of freedom of expression and communication in general. So what they plan to do with this project is to promote a series of recent studies and materials developed by UNESCO and to advocate on the recommendations and findings of these different tools.
Okay, but what about this, as you know, for me I think it's important to understand, like the colleague from Zambia said, if there's a general decision that regional projects have priority, and this is a regional project, is it so flawed that it doesn't fit, or is it maybe needs improvement, but being a regional project should deserve positive attention?
Our opinion is that the work that they are doing, Observacom is doing at the regional level, is important. It's very professional. The level of expertise is very high. So if there are some weaknesses, this could be fine-tuned when the contract is prepared. But I think Secretariat thinks that it deserves support. It is recommended for the approval.
To be honest, I didn't fill this in, so I don't know who put it, because on the other issues you can see that I stayed out of it. So maybe I can suggest, because if we, for the moment, since it says none of the chair cannot recommend it, does it mean that for the calculations the Secretariat made, this 20,000 is not in there yet? So if we do decide on this one, we need to find 20,000 somewhere else.
No, we still have some funds to be allocated. So for these 9 projects, there's an amount that is still available for allocation, and Ivan may tell us now with the recent decisions on the past 7 projects how much we have left.
We have approximately $50,000 left in the treasury.
So we're richer than we thought.
Maybe, Mr. Chair, we can reduce the amount
the delegate from Poland suggested to 18,000. We are flexible in that, but we think that the project would be supported.
I just want to raise the fact that I don't feel that we have a general decision that we should give priority just to regional projects because they are regional projects. I don't take that for granted as one of the ideas to support it. We of course we have to reach a consensus on this also. But I still feel that this is more about publication about projects. But anyway, of course we have to find a solution.
Yes, Gambia.
Thank you, Chair. I think media pluralism is one of the priorities that at regional level, it means actually communities are going to share ideas on how to promote media pluralism. Instead of having a project which is based in one country, where only members of the community feel that one country, I think it's better if it's involved in number 3 or 4 countries, because at least the knowledge that you get spreads to other areas. That's it's on the basis of that. I think that's why we arrived at the idea that we should promote regional programs which actually fall within the priorities that we consider as a bureau.
Thank you. Maybe I can ask the remaining bureau member Niger to speak out on it. Pouvez-vous aussi donner votre opinion sur le projet?
Non, je pense que mon voisin de la Zambie a rappelé un point essentiel qui est le pluralisme, qui est une priorité de l'UNESCO, du PIDC. Et donc, effectivement, si il était possible d'impliquer d'autres pays de la sous-région pour qu'il y ait un pluralisme au niveau aussi des opinions avec la diversité des pays, ce serait une excellente chose pour que ce projet se concrétise et donne un impact tel qu'escompté.
Merci. Mongolia, you wanted the floor? Maybe we can need some more time to reflect. I would like to just to not take a decision now, maybe go to the last one, then we have the picture complete.
Yes.
For the other projects. Project from Uruguay.
So now we have only one.
The role of judiciary as a guarantor for freedom of expression. The amount asked for is 17,700. Here we see Denmark declared the priority for the full amount. Mongolia also declared the priority. And Oman also, but for the full amount. So there's only a difference of opinion on the 700. If I may put it like that. So I think this is an easy one. We give the full amount. No? Full amount. So now we have two options. It's almost 6 o'clock. We can go for the drink and discuss the regional project tomorrow, together with the remarks raised by Maria from why so many other projects from the region were not approved. Or we could try to come to it, because if I may, if you can take the full account, the expenditure that we've decided upon until now, keeping in mind that there's one project that, if they come up with a license, we need to finance it. So that should also already be deducted from the budget.
So the total amount we're spending right now is $802,370 US, even though we have about $32,000 US left.
Is that correct? Can you confirm that? I'm not so very good in calculating. So.
Yes, so the amount in light blue is what we have allocated, and the amount in soft gray, it's what we have. So the difference is what we can still spend. So it's $32,000 approximately.
Can we go up to the list and see what we've decided? So on project 1, we said on project 1, I can see it from here, we said 20,320. On project number 5 on the big list, we should have 0, yes. If we decided not to do that. Project 11, we said 20,000 instead of 25,000. Project 34, where? It doesn't take 0? Okay, so that's, then we have 34 in Somalia. But there we said we are waiting for the license. No? Is that correct?
Number 34 in Somalia was postponed because of the license issue.
Ah, yeah, okay.
And number 36 is in Namibia, and 12,000 were approved.
Yes. So just to be sure, 34 is also on 0 on this list now for this year's budget. Yeah, it's there. Yaoundé was decided on 17,000. The project in Palestine was decided for the full amount. Yes? 34,000. Yeah. And 91 was also approved for 17,700, and the one still open was 89, where we have 2 members of the Bureau declaring it a non-priority and the others were in favor of it. And there was this also the question whether or not the fact that it is a regional project, it makes it a priority. And if I remember well, Denmark said, I don't remember that that is a priority per se. But maybe the Secretariat can enlighten us on what was decided on the regional projects.
At the last Bureau meeting, it was a criterion used to sort out which projects to be considered before we came to other projects. We started with Africa, then small island states, then regional projects. Then because it was a procedural way to give emphasis to something. I think it was also that these regional projects sometimes have potential scale of impact, impacting on the sector or region, not just a micro project.
So it's not a criteria to say yes without questions, but it's it has an impact and favors a certain positive approach. So maybe we can decide to allocate not the full amount, but because the amounts allocated now vary from 20,000 to 18,000. Would 80,000 be acceptable for Mongolia and Denmark to allocate? Can we do that? Then I think we have, then at least we have a decision on the 9, but because Ecuador asked to come back on projects which were in principle, say, by the procedures that we follow, not approved. Do you want to come back on those as a matter of principle to raise, or do you want to really come back on it to open the possibility of changing the decision from not approved to approved?
Well, really, Mr. Chair, it's not only an issue of principle, because if the region are very committed with the issue of freedom of expression after this agreement that was signed last year, and all the projects that not all, but particularly from Peru, Colombia, and Salvador, they are trying to, well, the Salvador is about for the community media, but Peru and Colombia, they are applying this agreement as almost the same project that was approved for Argentina and also Uruguay, but particularly the same project with Argentina regarding the trainers for the toolbox for the Ibero-American agreement that we signed. So I would like to know what the public is saying. So maybe we can combine the three countries in a regional project. Maybe I don't know, because we have also we have resources that we can use. I don't.
Yeah, but I think that maybe the Secretariat can. I don't have the evaluation by the Bureau members in front of me. Maybe we can look it up and then deal with what you want to do.
Chair. Yes, Chair. I want to say, to remind my sister something. Because I think even during last Bureau meeting we realized that from Muhari projects were almost cut and paste. And that's why I think we gave them resources to combine similar projects into a regional project. And if the pattern is still repeating itself, the way projects were presented during last meeting. So I think we should be guiding the people who are doing that. If they have a similar project which can be shared among us, why not coming up with one project proposed which can benefit these neighboring countries? Instead of each country has a similar project, each country, or 3 countries within one region. Similar, even waiting on the project, same.
I could read the reasons that were written in the project proposal. So Colombia, it said this, the project title, Enhancement of Colombia's Judiciary. And then the comment was project overlaps with the proposal submitted by University of Los Angeles. Too many elements, there's already an existing virtual course, online course in the same topic in Latin American character and region. There's extra budgetary project related to Colombia. The project seems to overlap existing projects and doesn't have detailed budget. That's why it was not recommended.
For Peru, these were several bureau members who were cited.
This is what the Secretariat commented and then
it was accepted by the bureau members who commented. I feel if those bureau members went through the whole list and spoke out on projects, and that there's a clear, those who spoke out, clear, non-favorable decision, I would like to come back to you, but come back on it.
I do have a comment.
Yes, actually, all bureau members who commented on this project agreed that it was not a priority, all of them.
From Colombia. Sure, I would add only to add that Colombia told me, our colleagues from Colombia told me that the University of Los Angeles is other project, that it's not the same project because what is presented for this time is for the judicial structure of Colombia. And for us, well, it's very, very important project. Maybe we can consider that they should present again, I don't know, to this possibility, because Colombia is a country that has many problems. Even now, we have a border, have 3 journalists that were killed in the previous days. You remember that even the Director General. So thank you so much.
If I remember correctly, when I went through the projects from that region, there was actually a lot of interesting and very important projects, but they need to be developed more. And I think that's the point, to have a better development of them, and then the bureau next year would be able to consider to support a better developed project. Because as I remember, were actually some among them that would be very good to support. But they need to be better prepared.
Okay, maybe because we are now running over our scheduled time to finish. I'd like to say, okay, in principle, we have decided on the 9 projects that were up for discussion. Maybe I can ask the Secretariat to go maybe with you over the members of the Bureau that decided against these 3 Latin American projects you mentioned. have a look at it again, and maybe see if they can be improved, and then maybe proposed again next year in an improved fashion, that they have a bigger chance to get the project. Also take on board what has been said, that for the colleague from Zambia, if there is possibilities to group regionally, it makes it even stronger. And then we come back on it first thing tomorrow morning, and if we then come to procedure with this, decide on the night.
Yes, Mr. Chair, yes, I think the proposal is good for us. We would like only to ask to the Secretary if it's possible that the regional office could talk as soon as possible with the two countries, particularly Peru and Colombia, to see, because we have still resources for allocate. So maybe they could present as soon as possible. Maybe we can not approve immediately, but maybe we could consider after by internet that the Bureau could approve if they present a combined project, as said also Denmark, more strong project.
I feel sympathy for what you say, but if I allow that to happen for the Latin American region, we can do the same for all regions. And then I'm sure we will not be able to, then the money that's left will not be enough. So I agree we can, but it's more a general thing. I think what I've heard today, also it's a very sharp eye from the Mongolian colleague. If we look at projects with a critical mind, then apparently many of them are not good enough prepared. And this should be a general call for the regional offices, the country offices, to be more precise, and maybe also for the Secretariat to be more strict. And we are not tough at the beginning of the process. It's more difficult to be tough at the end. And I think those who do their homework very well deserve to be given a fair chance. And of course, we have to be flexible and fair for the regional distribution, but I think that's what we try to do.
Only I would like to know what the comments from the other project from Peru, because we have listened to the comments from the Bureau from Colombia, but I don't know Peru and El Salvador. Thank you.
Okay, so we will leave it, just we say, okay, tomorrow morning first thing we come back on the 9, try to finalize the discussion, and in the meantime you can see, and maybe if you talk with the Secretary, you can also draw some lessons for the more general conclusions on how to prepare the presentation of projects to the Bureau members, and then have lessons learned from that process. Thank you all. I think we did a very good work together in this closed room. I'm happy that we can now move outside, move on sunlight before it's gone, and invite you all for the drink outside, and have a nice day.
We have finished everything.
I have even better news. We have the cocktail by the pool, so we can really step outside. No more air conditioning. See you at the pool.
Thank you, Ambassador. You are very kind with me. Thank you. No, it's important that the regional offices, yes, so that you can with the issue of the members of the members. You have to be fair.